My guest today is a lady called Kerry Hornett. In fact, we sat in circle a few years ago developing our mediumship. So today's a good excuse to catch up. When we sat in circle a few years ago, Kerry, it's quite intense, wasn't it?
It was amazing how it came together, because you and I were just sitting there chatting, having coffee one day, and decided that we were looking for a circle and we hadn't found one. And we decided, well, we'd start one ourselves if we couldn't find one. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, appeared Jeremy Mullins, lovely guy, who came in and was running the circle for us.
Yeah.
And I think it was all meant to be. I think everything, all the way along our path, what we need is just going to, it just appears when we need it.
It wasn't long, well, a few years after that, I moved up here to Suffolk. And you began quite soon working as a platform medium.
Yes, I met Doris Howie, lovely lady, since passed to spirit, and we started working on platform together. And it was nice to travel around together and give each other some moral support. Because it's a bit scary when you're first standing on platform and you have all these faces staring at you, expecting so much. And it's quite intimidating on your own. But working with somebody is lovely. And then when Doris passed, I carried on my own and have really enjoyed working on platform.
But now also you've digressed into another area of animal communication.
Yes, I have.
How did you manage that transition from mediumship to the animal kingdom?
I've always had a message, I feel, in mediumship is about demystifying it, recognising that this is perfectly natural, that we're all born with a psychic ability, we're all born with a language that we stop using as soon as we start learning to use words. And for me, communicating with animals and communicating in spirit is very, very similar.
Because we are talking about animals on the earth.
We're talking
Not
about
those
physically living
Yeah.
animals.
Yeah.
So I work with animals who have emotional behavioural problems. That's your sort of typical rescue animal who's come in with a history, and you don't know what the history is, but they're displaying a behaviour that is unacceptable, or you're worried about them because they're frightened. My job is to come in and find out what happened in their past that has caused them to behave in this way.
But how did you begin it all, Kerry? It wasn't just a case of waking up and thinking, oh, I'll do animal communication. Did you go on a course? Did you have to learn it?
I actually originally had a very good astrology reading with a lady called Marcia Day, who said to me, you should be working with animals. And I thought, well, I don't have the brains to be a vet because there's so much training involved, I would never get through that. And then I was standing one day in a newsagent and I was inspired to pick a copy of Your Dog magazine off the shelf. And in it was an article on somebody called James French, who teaches animal communication. And I went along to one of his courses. And then apparently there was a 9-month waiting list to get on to the practitioner training, but there was a cancellation, and I went on the practitioner training a week later. And that's very intensive training, and you go through not only the training and all the case studies and all the practice, but then you also have assessment.
So Kerry, you have a qualification in animal communication.
Yes, it's finally being accepted by professionals and they're taking it seriously, because, for instance, vets have always been frustrated that they can't help animals with emotional problems.
Right.
So they're happy to pass you cases.
When you communicate with animals, can you do distant communication?
Yes, I can work with animals anywhere in the world, because I don't have to see the animal face to face. I can have a photograph, and the animal can be in Australia, and I would have the owner on the phone, and we'd have a 3-way conversation. So from that photograph, using my senses, I can communicate with the animal and get details about what is upsetting them or what's causing their behaviour. And then you can still change behaviour over a distance. It doesn't matter what distance they are.
And you teach this now, don't you? Do you teach animal communication in workshops?
Yes, I do. I teach the basic animal communication, because what most people want to know is how can they talk to their pets and listen to the answers.
Yeah.
So I just teach the basic level and help people in a one-day workshop to be able to go home and communicate with their pets.
What I'm interested in is, like, say, the pet owner can now communicate with their animal
Yes.
or their pet, but does their perception of the animal kingdom change?
Oh, it can't help but change, because if you can understand that apart from body language and the noises that an animal makes, there is a whole so many layered personality behind that. I think most people who have had a pet that they've had a deep bond with has suspected that they have a personality beyond what you can see. But as soon as you start to communicate with them, you realise that they care about you, that they feel they have responsibility for you, that they have worries and they have history that's affecting them. They are many-layered like humans are. So you can't help but change your perception.
Yeah. I know you mentioned this one a few years ago to me.
Yes.
Could you remind me about the kittens under the floorboards?
Oh, yes. That was a case I was dealing with. The lady was in Scotland, and she works for Cats Protection in Scotland. She had gone to a council house in Fife where she had collected a cat, and she'd got her in the car and she was driving back across Fife, and then she had another look at the cat and realised that the cat had either just given birth or had weaned some kittens. So she took a photograph with her phone, sent it to me, and while she was sitting there in the car, we had a communication with this animal, and the cat was absolutely frantic because she'd left her kittens behind. So the lady turned round, drove back to this council house. What had happened was the council had replaced a grill on the outside of the house, and the cat had been able to get into the kittens, but had come back and found this grill back over, and she couldn't get back in to see them. And so in the end, we had to encourage the cat to go back under the floorboards to direct me to where the kittens were, because we couldn't pick up any sounds from them. And eventually, they were this lovely household taking up floorboards to our direction in their house. We managed to find the 5 kittens that she'd left behind, who were so young that they weren't making any sounds at all. We'd never have picked them up in any other way. And we rescued them, and they were all rehomed.
But what are people's perception when they meet you for the first time, and you just say you're an animal communicator?
Yes.
Do they think you're mad?
You get a surprising audience sometimes of people that you maybe thought would be sceptical. Most people have had experience of pets. And if you've had an experience with a pet and you've really developed a bond, then actually you're some way to understanding that you can have a deeper link. And actually most people are communicating with their pets without realising it anyway.
Kerry, if anyone wishes to contact you, have you a website?
Yes, it's called linkwithanimals.co.uk. And I'm also the resident animal communicator at Cricket St Thomas.
Oh, right.
So Warners are taking it seriously, which is nice.
Well, that's quite radical, isn't it, for a well-known hotel chain to be open-minded to animal communication?
Yes. I mean, they had a lovely resident medium there, and they are trying to cater to different types of people. And so I was invited in to work as an animal communicator there. And it's lovely. I mean, we get sceptical people in the audience, but you really can't judge on age group, or you can't judge until you meet people, and some people are very open-minded about it.
Kerry, it's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you.
I wish you well with your mediumship and your animal communication.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Lovely to meet you again.
Nice to meet you.